Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 315, cover dated August 1994. So the cover caption here, Judgment at Avalon. We pick up with Colossus, who threw his lot in with Magneto, and then of course Magneto was mind wiped by Professor X in X-Men Volume 2 number 25. So we're going to check out and see what's happening with Colossus aboard Avalon. Orbiting above the Earth. Now the cover here is by Roger Cruz, and he is the guest artist inside the comic as well. Roger Cruz here doing a good impression of Jim Lee, and later on Cruz would be a sort of regular fill-in guest penciler during the Joe Madureira era, when his style changed to imitate Madureira's style. The inker here, excuse me, Kevin Conrad. So the cover's pretty busy and not too bad. Let's open this one up to the splash page, and what we have here is a view precisely of Avalon orbiting the Earth, the moon there in the background. It's okay. It's not too bad. There's an interesting use of screen tone up there. And let's have a read of the narrative captions. Where do your dreams go to die? For Peter Rasputin, once called Colossus of the X-Men, that place is here, Avalon, a space station cloaked in orbit far above the Earth. Stan Lee presents a tale of the Acolytes, entitled Peers. And the creative team is Scott Lobdell, writer, Roger Cruz, guest penciler, Dan Green, Joe Rubinstein, Bud LaRosa and Hilary Barta are the inkers. Chris Eliopoulos, letterer, and Steve Buccellato and Marie Javins, colorists. So the large inking team there and the two colorists is an indicator that this issue went to press under a tight deadline. And one thing that Roger Cruz, who was around 18 years old when he produced this artwork, that's important to remember as well and note. One thing that he was renowned for was a speedy turnaround of the pages, and you can see that towards the end of the issue as well. There's more detail, more time and attention taken with the art in the first half of the issue than in the second. So let's continue, and the setup in this issue is this character here, the neophyte, who we last saw in Uncanny X-Men number 300, aiding the X-Men against the Acolyte, so he betrayed his Acolyte peers, has been on the run for months by his own word here, or weeks rather, and he either was captured or handed himself in, and there is a trial, and he is going to be judged at the trial in respect of his treachery, his betrayal of the Acolytes. And his defender in the trial is going to be none other than Peter Rasputin Colossus, and he is asking the neophyte to help him prepare the defense. But the neophyte says, "Why risk your standing among the Acolytes to defend me? Why?" And Colossus responds, "Because I'm a firm believer in second chances, because if I don't, the punishment for your crime is death." And the neophyte, who's in despair, says, "Is it not possible that I deserve to die? When I was lost, alone, confused, the Acolytes took me in and taught me the word of Magneto by helping Professor Xavier's team, X-Men defeat them. I betrayed my brethren's trust in me. How can a jury of my peers find me anything but guilty?" And of course the irony here is that Colossus has defected from Professor X's X-Men to join the Acolytes. So there's some ironies play throughout this issue. And running through the issue is a moral debate regarding Professor X's way versus Magneto's way, and whether there might not be a third path in between the extremes of Magneto and Professor X. So their conference here is interrupted as the door opens. Not a great choice here by Roger Cruz. I think he should show the speaker, who is Amelia Voigt, who orders the neophyte to come for trial. And Amelia Voigt will turn out to be the prosecutor at the trial. So here we go, splash page of the man behind Avalon, Magneto, but with his eyes blanked out because Professor X wiped his mind back in X-Men number 25. And let's have a look at the narrative captions here. 1 mile directly above, As far removed physically from his followers as he is spiritually sits the chosen messiah of the Acolytes, born Eric Magnus Lensher. He spent many years of his life known as the mutant named Magneto, self-proclaimed master of magnetism and self-appointed savior of the mutant race. So we get just a full page of Magneto's face, and I don't think that's a great use of the page, in particular because Cruz here is going for something Jim Lee might have done, and even though he's doing a fairly okay job at imitating Jim Lee's style, it just doesn't have the impact of a Jim Lee close-up on Magneto's face. It doesn't compare, and so it's only all right. It's all right. Again, it should be noted that the artist is but 18 years old producing this work here. And then we get a double page spread of the throne room for Magneto. There he is wearing these sandals and this dressing robe, and looking out of it as over here Exodus speaks a soliloquy. Oh no, well, he's addressing Magneto, but Magneto's not present mentally, so in effect it's a kind of monologue. "They doubt, my lord," he says. "There are those among your flock who feel that you, through no fault of your own, have abandoned them. They think simply because Charles Xavier shut down your mind, that you no longer see, no longer hear, that you neither taste nor feel. Why, Lord, why do they doubt that I am not only your most favourite disciple, but the eyes and ears and voice of Magneto as well? How dare they doubt me? How dare they doubt us?" And the narrative captions, "But there comes no reply from the empty vessel of a man, no answer save perhaps the whispers that echo within the head of the man called Exodus." And I think we could have had all of that on one page, and the double page spread or the full page image or big anchor images could have been saved later on in the issue for more interesting or dynamic moments. So I think that betrays the inexperience of Roger Cruz as an artist. And also, again, even his choice here, if this is in Lobdell's script to have a big double page spread, putting Exodus over here, teeny tiny, looking out the window, the Gothic window here, I don't think it's a good choice. But as I said, he's a young artist, inexperienced, and he's doing his best, I can imagine. So you see, we get a lot squeezed into these two pages, and indeed it's only a very simple action that's going on. We've got this Acolyte scanner who comes up to tell Exodus that the neophyte has been brought to the justice chamber, so the trial is about to start, but she sneaks a look at Magneto, and then Exodus punishes her because there is a taboo on looking directly at Magneto in the face, because of course that might further their doubts about Magneto, because he is in effect inert, mindless, and they might begin to doubt indeed how it is that Exodus is speaking for Magneto if Magneto has absolutely no mind. So he grabs her by the throat and she asks for forgiveness, and of course throughout this issue the Acolytes speak and act in terms of being a religious cult. Exodus lets her go, tells her to go to the justice chamber and he'll be there shortly. And then he says, and this is a good upshot on Exodus's face. I've no doubt that Roger Cruz was studying Jim Lee's art for this issue, and that he is in some cases copying poses from Jim Lee's published works. But nonetheless, this works well. I think this is a good angle on the face here, and difficult to do. So he says to Magneto, "Alone again, my lord, just you and I, just as it should be. Tell me again how you suffered such fools, Magneto, for in truth, your acolytes are trying my patience." And we'll see indeed how the dynamic between Exodus and the Acolytes works out later in the issue. So there's Amelia Voigt dressed up as a kind of a nun, but she's the prosecutor in the trial. and the neophyte here is brought to the justice chamber up these stairs. That's actually a nice and interesting drawing here, and that would have taken some work by Cruz. That's not easy to draw, the angles and perspective here, so that's impressive. So then they finally make their way in, and in between there has been a bit of a debate between Colossus and Vought regarding whether Vought is truly on board with this kangaroo trial. And she says, I learned a long time ago, Rasputin, that what I believe or don't believe is inconsequential. I found when left to make my own choices in life, I invariably made the wrong ones. So instead, for better or worse, or for worse, I do what I'm told. So she's fully signed up to the choice, or to the cult. And Colossus in the background asks a pertinent question, but isn't that a choice as well? And of course, it's all ironic given the questions most readers, long-term readers, would have about Colossus's choice to join the Acolytes. He joined with Magneto, but with Magneto now mindless, why stay with the Acolytes? So here we have Exodus up aboard, sitting on top this seat of judgment, and we have the Acolytes here, and Neophyte going forward for trial, and he kneels down and says, I accept responsibility. He's about to say, I accept responsibility. And Exodus interrupts him, silence, child, what you feel is of no concern to this court. Like, what is he talking about? Accepting responsibility isn't a feeling. So this is a kangaroo trial, a show trial, and everything is going to ultimately go to an outcome where the neophyte is going to be sentenced to execution. That's what Exodus wants, but we'll see. There's a trial nonetheless, and the prosecution goes first, and this is Amelia Vaught's big speech. Without our faith, we have nothing. This is as true here among ourselves, thousands of kilometers above the planet which spawned us, as it was when we lived among a population that feared us simply for being born Homo superior. And she concludes here, on the evening the neophyte betrayed us to the X-Men, his actions went a long way to eroding these fates that lay at the heart of our movement. For this reason alone, the boy should lose what he took away from us, everything, that is, that he should be sentenced to death. Of course, the defense is going to have something to say, and here we have Colossus, and this is a good angle on Colossus here from behind, just with a little highlight of his ear there, indicating the angle on his face. It's pretty good. And so he says, ignore everything the prosecutors just told you, for this has nothing to do with faith and everything to do with the reality of the man born Eric Lensher, spelt wrong there. And therein lies the problem, for Magneto has been many things to many people. To some he was considered a butcher himself when he exacted vengeance from the people who prevented him from saving his daughter, while to the others he has been considered a liberator. To the X-Men he alternated for a time between our their deadliest adversary and most powerful ally. Magneto once served as headmaster for Xavier's school for gifted youngsters when my own sister was alive. There were many aspects to the man's life. His actions opened to many different interpretations. That's interesting, because that has been like the full history of Magneto's characterization from the 60s up to the present, and in particular through Chris Claremont's run and sophisticated development of Magneto's character. So Colossus here, with miscolored hair, blonde instead of black, says, this is the reality of the man called Magneto. This is what this case is all about. To this young man, his Lord and chosen Messiah was a man who would not stand by and watch as Moira MacTaggert was abused, tortured, because of the mere fact that her genetic structure was less evolved than ours. That's a reference to the story in Uncanny X-Men 300. And Vought here thinks to herself, you're good, Peter Rasputin, very good. But she calls to the stand Brother Milan to discuss how the young neophyte first came to see the light, join them. So he uses his powers here, which he says, by using my mutant gift of projecting EM thought waves into cognitive electronic imagery, he shows them the history of their discovery of the neophyte in Switzerland in a church where he was seeking sanctuary. He came out and he joined them. And Milan concludes, but we were wrong, pitifully wrong. The entire time he was waiting, planning to destroy us from within. The neophyte disagrees. And she gets the neophyte to explain what could possess him to turn his back on the fellowship of the Acolytes. So he says, when I first arrived at the Mount, it is true, I felt with all my heart that Magneto was a saviour for us all. Then Dr. MacTaggart arrived, and I witnessed firsthand the hypocrisy of the Acolytes. So he's talking about a time when the Acolytes were governed by Fabian Cortez. On one hand, you profess to support Magnus's goal of allowing mutants to live in peace, but you feel the only way to do that is by treating humans with the same hate they have for us. In the face of your inhumanity to the woman, I realised there must be another way, an alternative to the pain, suffering and deadly confrontations between our two people. Knee deep in the rain and mud of Mont Saint Francis, I met that alternative face to face. And Colossus asked, this other way, did it have a name? Yes, Charles Xavier. So the two dreams, the two paths are contrasted with each other in the course of this trial of the neophyte. So Cargill interrupts here. Sorry, not Cargill, it's Eunice Shione interrupts here and grabs the neophyte in her sonic exoskeleton, and Colossus transforms into his metallic form to protect him, and Vought uses her powers to whisk the neophyte away. And then the Kleinstock twins attack Colossus, and of course at this point Exodus is going to intervene, and he says, it seems I misjudged the amount of tension this would create. Rather than run the risk of fraying the edges of our delicate little tapestry any further, I'll take this matter before Lord Magnus himself now. Although I'm certain of his decision even before I ask, I will return shortly. So he heads away, and then we have this debate among the Acolytes where they say that Colossus has turned on them. And the neophyte says, why, Peter? Why didn't you just let me plead guilty for my crimes? As a former X-Man, even you admit Xavier's way is wrong. So this is a big question readers have regarding Colossus, why he's staying with the Acolytes. And he says here, no, I never said it was wrong. I said it didn't work for me, not now, not in the world as it exists. So Colossus, suffering the loss of his brother, of his parents, of his sister, most recently Ileana, has come to the conclusion that the world is a harsh place, and Xavier's dream just can't work in such a world. So Vought asks him, could it be, Peter, that you've come to understand what I've suspected for some time, that perhaps neither Xavier's dreams nor Magneto's vision is 100% correct? Could it be that the answer lies somewhere in the middle of the two? So Colossus there, thinking about it, says, Vought, my presence here alone is testimony that anything is possible. But privately, he thinks to himself, this is a nice panel as well, including the realization that it was not Xavier's dream which didn't work, but that I did not work hard enough, did not sacrifice enough to make that dream a reality. Well, he lost everything. Lost his brother, lost his parents, lost his sister. So I'm not sure if I agree with his thoughts on that, but we don't have to agree with him because he's not necessarily an authority on the decisions he made himself. But here Exodus returns, and these pages are coloured by Marie Javins, not Buccellati, I can tell you that much. And he tells the neophyte to step forward, but he never gets off his knees, and he's about to deliver this judgment. I do this with no malice in my heart, neophyte, but you know that you are hereby sentenced to... And Colossus interrupts. No, the boy's only crime is the strength of his convictions, something Magneto, as I knew him, would have respected and honoured, for he was a man whose entire family was slaughtered by an army of soldiers, men, quote-unquote, following orders. Those same men sent millions of their fellow human beings into a holocaust raging with the heat of stupidity and ignorance. I came here to Avalon because I believed we were going to be better than that. It is the very same reason this boy came to you, to us. Is he to be punished for refusing to sit back and blindly follow orders? Is he to be condemned for thinking differently, for refusing to stand back and watch as another living being was beaten and tortured? Is this how far we've come since Magneto's own youth, that we are willing, some of us eager, to send one more being to his death because he's different from us? If so, then we should all follow. because eventually that is where we will all end up. Anyone who disagrees, who has their own opinion, will soon enough be fodder for the flames. Very interesting speech in the context of 2023 and what's known as the culture wars, yes. And here we are back in 1994 with more of a centrist type position, and one that I think most people today might still agree with, yes. So this quiets the Acolytes, and Colossus concludes, "No, Exodus, if Magneto's life has taught us anything at all, it was how not to follow the orders of others, but to follow as he has done the dictates of his own heart." So go with your heart, go with your conscience. But of course, sometimes the heart can send you astray, yes? So sometimes you got to go with your brain too. And the room is silent, save for the echo of Colossus's words. So he's gotten through to the Acolytes. So Exodus there, and the narrative captions makes it plain. Exodus notes the faces of the Acolytes, the impression those words have made, and as ever, he adapts to survive, okay? So he's morally flexible himself. As I was about to say, Peter Nikolaevich, I would have taken his life without a shred of remorse, but Magneto is by far a more compassionate soul. That is why he instructed me to banish this wretch to the place of fools known as Earth. So he sends him to Earth. And as for the rest of you, peace be with you, as he walks off. So, Vought says to Colossus, "So tell me, Rasputin, was it worth it to win your case while at the same time alienating yourself from the rest of us?" But he thinks otherwise. "I don't think that is what happened, Amelia. If nothing else, I'm confident that the rest of the Acolytes heard my words. And it may be so. How long, I wonder, before they understand in their hearts that these are the true words by which men such as Professor Xavier and Magneto live their lives." And up elsewhere in Avalon, Exodus thinks his thoughts, including the doubt that he feels gnawing at the very heart of his soul, a doubt that after today the Acolytes will no longer believe he alone speaks for his Lord. And elsewhere, we have a smile on the mindless Magneto's face. Exodus doesn't witness the faintest of a smile which appears like a faded memory across the face of a man, an enigmatic smile that signals perhaps the return of a Messiah. So, interesting. Just a complete focus on this trial of the neophyte, and that used as a vehicle for contrasting Magneto's way, Professor X's way, and a kind of a synthesis here at the end that when it comes to Professor X and it comes to Magneto, what united them was that they both were said by the dictates of their heart, and that often involved compassion. And so by such means the neophyte's life was saved, and Vought and Colossus are both of them in their different ways proved to be stood apart from the main body of the Acolytes. And coming up next is the Phalanx Covenant event. Be here in 30 for Generation Next, because if the Phalanx have their way, the X-Men won't. Okay. So I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Uncanny X-Men 315. If you did, please like the video on YouTube. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.